Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of The Strell Show here. I am your host, Strell. It feels good to be back. It has been the longest in between episodes since we kicked this off back in January, but we're back and I've been away from the mic, been doing a little bit of traveling, celebrating my sister graduated pharmacy school, so that's super exciting. We were celebrating her on a trip. I took a golf trip. So I've been doing a little bit of traveling. Summer is here. I mentioned in some previous episodes that I just moved to the beach, and today was one of those days where I was feeling so grateful because I went down to the beach during my lunch period and I sat there on the beach feeling the breeze. I call these days air conditioner days because you're outside and you feel like you're in an air conditioner. But the wind was blowing, the sun was out. I just felt so immensely blessed and grateful out there on the beach. But you didn't come here to talk about traveling and gratitude. Well, that'll be another episode. But you didn't come here to talk about the air conditioner days here in the summer. You came here to take a journey. And today's journey is about silence. Are we practicing enough silence? And unfortunately, I have to say practicing silence. It seems the world is becoming less and less silent. To the world, it seems silence may be viewed upon as useless. So is silence something that we should avoid or invite more of into our life? Now, as much as I would love to give you that answer, I don't have that for you. That's for you to find out. I just want to present you with a new perspective on silence. And just maybe you'll find that answer with this new perspective. So let's get started. I'd like to first get the elephant in the room out of the way about silence. All right. Silence is boring. Silence is boring, and I don't want to be bored. What's the use? I don't get it. Why are we going to be silent? I don't get it. Well, first, being bored has a tremendous upside. And we're going to spend a good bit of time talking about that, as I think it's an integral part of silence. And just because we are bored does not mean that we are not moving the needle. It does not mean we are not progressing. The mind will lie to us and say we aren't doing anything, thus nothing is happening. But something beneficial is happening. Introspection, creativity, ability to handle problems, more happiness. This isn't nothing. They are something. Something is happening. And I'm not a fan of getting too technical on the show, although I do believe it makes sense from time to time. When we are bored, our brain goes into what is called the default mode network. Now, this network is activated when our minds are not actively engaged in a task. So yes, there is a scientific term for what we experience when we are bored. Instead of reciting a Google definition, I thought I would describe an example and see if it resonates with you. Let's say you are commuting to work on the train, and as you are sitting on the train, what happens? Well, your mind starts to think about a bunch of different things. You'll think about what happened yesterday with your work colleague, the weekend plans that you're excited for. Then you'll start to think about how you're not going to have enough time to go to the gym today and how you spent too much money on that flight you purchased and a bunch of other things. The point is your mind begins to wander because you aren't engaged in an activity because you're just simply riding the train to work. The default mode network is just a fancy term for what happens when our mind wanders. It opens pathways for our minds to think about things, create, introspect, and use our imagination. Let's look at kids for an example quickly. They get bored more easily than adults do. And if we don't throw an iPad in front of them, they start to use their imagination. Look, mommy, I'm on the phone. Look, I'm cooking breakfast. Do you want some? Yum, yum, yum. And this is because the precursor for our imagination to explore is sometimes boredom. The reason we avoid boredom is that sometimes the stuff that comes up is uncomfortable. Just like anything else in life, the gift is right on the other side of discomfort. Boredom will lead us into places that we can grow. It will illuminate thought patterns and ideas that if we decide to take action on these ideas, we actually fundamentally change our lives. For example, if we find ourselves bored on the weekends after working all week, we may say, hey, I need to get a hobby. And if you decide to take that leap into starting a new hobby, you are now fundamentally changing your life. Do you see how boredom can motivate us to change? You may not have picked up that activity if you weren't bored in the first place. The main point here is just to view boredom as less of an enemy and more of a good friend. And that friend is like all friends. They have good things to say, and they have some challenging, uncomfortable things to say. But bearing they are a good friend, they are in your corner. So we shouldn't let boredom stop us from inviting silence into our lives. Moving into creativity. I just finished a podcast. Chris Stapleton was the guest. And for those who don't know, he is a very well-renowned country rock singer, and he's also an excellent songwriter. And he actually started his career as a songwriter in Nashville before his singing career took off. Now, he described going into silence as putting up an antenna and allowing the creative idea for a song to hit that antenna. Here is one of the best songwriters on the planet telling us that silence was something he seeks for his creative endeavors. Our mind is like a city, and that city has a few major highways into it. When we go into silence, we clear the highways and we allow ideas to come in. When we have music playing and a Netflix show on and our siblings yelling the latest TikTok trends, the roads are just packed already, and it just makes it harder for new creative ideas to show up. You start to change your frequency from a consumer to a creator. One caveat I would like to mention: when we go into silence, we must allow what comes up on its own. Looking too hard for an idea to arrive adds pressure and tension to the exercise, and it shows a lack of trust in the process. Circling back to the podcast with Mr. Stapleton, the host also asked if he was ever doubtful that the lyrics would show up. He said no, which is really some jaw-dropping confidence. But the point is here, he's not sitting in silence hoping the words arrive. He knows the words will come and allows this process to take root. So what do we learn from this really? It's that silence with faith and confidence that the creation will arrive is a very powerful combination, especially for creativity. Now, moving forward, what role can silence play in relationships? I was recently talking to a family member of mine, and we were discussing relationships. She and I were discussing being with the right person. We discussed how when we are with the right people, when there is silence, when there is a break in the conversation, it's a good sign when those moments aren't met with the pressure to say something. An awkward silence may feel wrong to you when you're not with the right person, or better yet, not feeling like you're able to be yourself. This isn't just applicable to our partners, but in all relationships as well. Plus, in that moment of silence, who's to say that we didn't need it for a clear and more fruitful conversation? Simply pausing for a moment after something is said to us isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It shows the other person you are carefully considering a response so they feel more heard. If what they said to you was rude, it also allows them to hear back what they said aloud and sit with it. And more often than not, they will apologize or backtrack even before getting a response from you. My father, who coached my friends and I in football growing up, always said, "Silence is golden." When we ran onto the field, we didn't need to make loads of noise with big speakers yelling and screaming. We could walk on the field with a silent confidence. The silent person or team isn't the weaker subject. They just have a different perspective on strength. And now, finally, probably one of the most important benefits and uses for silence in our lives is rest and relaxation. Do not underestimate what just a couple of minutes of silence can do to change the course of your day. Peace and quiet. Typically, we do the opposite. When we have a problem, we get noisy. We start asking people, we start looking things up, we start banging around, and those things aren't bad. It's just an alternative approach. Try the self-reliance approach. In my last episode, we talked about getting hit. And for those who haven't seen the last episode, which I would highly recommend you going back and checking out episode 5 of the Strell Show, Getting Hit, it's just my metaphor for going through tough times in life. But a good practice may be to take 5 to 10 minutes of silence after getting hit to allow your mind and body to just reset for a second. Just take it in. No need to go off and calling 100 people and running around and listening to music, just sitting with it in silence. And maybe you'll be okay after getting hit. And it might have just been that 5 minutes that really helps you. Now, of course, there are a million and one ways to relax, but why not give silence a try? And you may try it and say, "Strell, I feel worse after sitting in silence." Remember, the gift is right on the other side of discomfort. Silence will force us to sit with our problems and actually allow us to feel our emotions. And once we feel them, we're now able to release them. Our ears, which are always on, do not close like our eyes do. And they would appreciate a break from the noise that is going on. We do not have to wait until Sunday morning to permit ourselves for some silence. This could be a game changer. Now, in closing, I always like to leave our listeners with some actionable items. So, here it is. Can you practice 15 minutes of silence every day? 15 minutes of silence. Now, you don't just have to sit there and do nothing in silence. You can read a book. You can clean dishes. You can fold your laundry. You can do whatever you need to do. But the whole point is no music, no TV, nothing. And your mind might say, "This is stupid. Why am I doing this? I'm not doing anything." Just watch those thoughts and allow them to pass. That's all I have for you today, folks. Thank you very much for listening, and I will